So any artist, or for that matter anyone who's ever taken a basic drawing or sketching course, would generally be sympathetic to Berkeley's proposal of a visual language, though the reference to the author of nature might be problematic. I mean, pick up any book on how to draw, and invariably the first part of the book will emphasize that an artist does not draw things. An artist draws lines. So the artist learns to create shape and texture with lines. The artist uses color or even grayscale with a simple pencil to create shape, form, and space, all on a flat piece of paper. So if a person sets out to draw a hand or a house, they first need to stop thinking about a hand and a house and simply see the raw information. This process in art courses is often described as like a new way of looking or stripping of all prior learning and preconceptions. I mean, here's a typical example. So in this book, Keys to Drawing by Bert Dodson, 1985, drawing can be described quite simply. Look at the subject and take note of a contour or shape. Hold that contour or shape in your mind for a moment. Draw it while it is still fresh in memory. Look, hold, draw. Notice we do not include think about it in this sequence. In fact, drawing can be viewed as a process which usually bypasses conscious thought and knowledge. Artist and author Frederick Frank, in his book My Eye is in Love, expresses it this way. All the hand has to be is the unquestioning seismograph that notes down something, the meaning of which it knows not. The less the conscious personality of the artist interferes, the more truthful and personal the tracing becomes. So Berkeley phrases this somewhat differently, but it's essentially the same idea at the foundation of his visual language. The direct or immediate objects of vision are just light and color. But through years of experience, we interpret this raw data in order to make judgments about our surroundings for our well-being and survival. So the key to drawing and sketching is to focus on that raw data coming into the eye and hold off on interpreting the data. Forget that you are looking at mountains at a distance. Just look at the colors and the lines and the shapes and the shadow that are defined by different colors. What is so amazing about visual arts is that one person, after they've mastered this skill, can create images that have a power far beyond the lines and the color that he's put down on the piece of paper. The artist can invoke powerful emotions that can touch the inner being of a person. If there is such power in visual information on paper, what about the real world? So for the Christian, Berkeley's visual language is simple. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And also later on, in the New Testament, that they, i.e. all people, should seek God in the hope that they might feel after him and find him. Yet he is not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. What we ultimately receive from the light is a constant, reliable, steady source of life-sustaining information. However, in terms of the physical eye, the reflections that we receive, this raw visual information, is limited and disjointed from the other senses. And there is no necessary connection between this raw visual data and the essence of what we are looking at. It is only through the activity of our soul, our mind, operating on this raw data, that a most amazing awareness is given to us. The colors, shades, and shadows we directly perceive are analogous to words of a spoken language, where the true meaning is not in the phonetics of the words. It's what the words signify within us that has meaning. So it is with visual language, instituted by God for our well-being and prosperity. As explained in detail in Berkeley's writings, the reflected light, the crude information that enters our eyes are signs or words of a language, the meaning of which we gradually learn as we grow from infancy to adulthood. When the sun rises, our world is illuminated, our eyes take in an explosion of color, but it is our inner being that takes this basic information and rises to a level indescribable. None of this meaning is grounded in the physical, which is merely the medium through which the true, spiritually based information is given, spoken by God Himself. He is not far from each one of us. It is in Him that we live and move and have our being. The academic, philosopher's perspective is, what do you end up when you take Berkeley's visual language and subtract God? Now, why do I say this? Well, because Berkeley's visual language is premised on the existence of the Christian God of the Bible. For the majority of philosophers, the existence of God is simply a proposition like any other, and not considered an established fact. However, because many of the individual arguments Berkeley makes regarding his visual language are not premised directly on God, the philosopher and the academic is free to consider the bulk of Berkeley's writings, with the existence of God as merely a footnote. So then what do you end up with when God is subtracted from visual language? Well, I can't generalize about a broad field like this, but because the philosophical tradition of idealism deals directly with the issues that were raised by Berkeley, I will focus in that general direction. So, Berkeley's insight into the highly limited nature of the information that we immediately receive from our eyes, indeed all our senses, and how the mind, soul, spirit plays a large and pivotal role in our understanding of this raw sensory data, took a firm root in philosophy through idealism. However, Berkeley's claim that the understanding we do have is intimately related to the author of nature, who created and sustains the world around us, who is literally speaking to us through light, is replaced with a focus on the self, and inquiries into how we know, or the process of making judgments and claims to knowledge. To arrive at an understanding of reality, philosophers have opened many pathways of exploration. Kant, for example, focuses on the inner resources of the mind, while Hegel sees the path to understanding as ultimately arrived at through our relations rooted in social interactions. Without God as the supreme arbitrator and creator of visual information, what we can know of the world becomes a question about the self, and the nature of human consciousness rises to the forefront. Kant, Hegel, Marx, Freud, Jung, Fichte, Schelling, Sartre, etc., etc. Many, many others have inquired into the depths of human consciousness to better understand the self and how the self comes to make knowledge claims about the world around us. The marketplace is large in the academic world. Take your pick. If you can't find one you like, create a new one. The scientist as well cannot accept the unsupported premise or myth of the existence of the Creator God who spoke, "Let there be light." For the scientist, visual information is just another data set. For the scientist, there is no world beyond the raw sensory data we receive. The scientist takes visual data in and meticulously processes it, expands its range through experimentation, and through instrumentation, expands sensory perception beyond the limits of the physical eye. Indeed, the same is done with hearing and touch. However, from this, all he is able to do is to create theories and models. The theories developed are valid as long as no experiment contradicts. Because all experiments have not been performed and new instrumentation can be invented or existing improved, the scientist is always in process, always seeking the truth, but never actually establishing it. Therefore, all theories, all scientific knowledge, is either valid for all known experimental data, or mostly valid, or somewhat valid, or not valid at all. The situation is and always will be in a constant state of flux, forever waiting for the next batch of experimental data to confirm or refute present knowledge. Now, within a specific paradigm, the scientist's confidence increases directly with experimental confirmation. As more and more experiments confirm a particular theory, the scientist's confidence rises, often to the point where the word law comes into play. The problem is, a paradigm shift is always lurking in the background. This is where a mature, seemingly highly validated theory is suddenly and completely wiped out, invalidated, and replaced by one of completely different character. A theory held dear and believed in for so many generations, suddenly tossed onto the garbage pile of scientific history. Or it is restricted and confined to a limited range or a subset of data, while the new paradigm, with its fundamentally new character, encompasses the complete range. So for the scientist, visual information is just another data set. Now, while the data itself can fascinate the scientist and non-scientist as well, the meaning is in the theories and the models that the data validates. Moreover, when models and theories are well understood, the unity and the relationships within the data are better understood, and this brings even more depth to the meaning of the theory. This meaning, however, is always in flux, changing as new theories are created and old ones discarded. What is regarded as an immutable law one day is not a law at all the next.